Hello, this is Hanelhovich. In this unit, we learned about Transcendentalism, which is a literal and philosophical movement, as well as a spiritual belief. It began in the United States in Massachusetts of 1830s, and it was considered the first truly American movement. The Transcendentalist ideology consists of nonconformity, self-reliance, free thought, confidence, and it puts a high value on nature. They go a lot against industrialism and believe that the human should be more intrigued with nature. And they also believe that God and nature come as one. Both with Mr. Baumgarten and Mr. Meadows, we did some exercises to better understand the ideology of Transcendentalism. With Mr. Baumgarten, at the beginning of the unit, we took a walk into the woods and tried to listen to the sounds of nature and what was all around us, trying to get a sense of what the authors viewed, trying to view it through their eyes. Afterwards, we compared some of the natural sounds that we heard to some of the urban sounds that we heard while we were there, and reflected upon how humans have integrated themselves into nature and how they might be destroying it. With Mr. Meadows, we looked at several artworks and tried to compare them to literature. We were able to see that, like in literature, many of the characteristics for the art, it's very similar. In most of them, they turn to nature and its relationship to humanity. If ever there is a human show, most of the time he will be alone, and many of the paintings are very colorful and optimistic. The Oil on Canvas by Asher Brown Durang helped me fully understand artwork and how you can incorporate Transcendentalism into it. It is of a man surrounded by his sheep going into a beautiful landscape and out of the forest, which is dark. The man who is shown seems to be very independent and surrounded by what seems to be the sheep, which could be seen as a representation of God and nature. This could be compared to Thoreau's reading of Where I Lived and What I Lived For, where he talks about going into the woods and isolating himself from urban scenarios, and how it is very important to integrate himself into nature. Transcendentalists put a lot of value into education and the understanding of the world. They believe that you should self-educate and that you should have very developed self-criticism towards the world with logical support. I believe that the perfect example for this is the women who were the authors of Transcendentalism, like Margaret Fuller or Elizabeth Palmer, who were seen as extremely educated women and stood up for the rights of women. Another example of this is Thoreau, for he makes reference a lot about Greek mythology or philosophers in his work, which shows that he is a very educated man. I believe that this is a very important view and a very good experience for any student, because you can see that even though they write about civil disobedience, that they still have very good education and that they are able to logically support all of their arguments, as anybody should do. One of the biggest difficulties that I faced during this unit was understanding some of the works and their purpose. When I first started reading about how some authors isolated themselves from urban scenarios, I believed that it was just an excuse for them to criticize society and avoid social situations that they might have to face. As I began to read more of their works, I started to realize that their literature goes way more into depth than I had thought. They have very well supported arguments about government, about how society is today, and about how it should be, and what somebody can do to make it better. I do believe that this was a very interesting unit that helped me understand the importance of self-reliance and critical thinking. Also put a lot of thought into nature and what we are doing with it. In the end, it helped me do my artwork and develop it in such a way that I show most of the Transcendentalist ideas that I have seen in both art and English.